Hey there everyone, welcome to the, you can hear my chicken in the background, and my dog, hang on. There, this is Wenny. This is the last MRTB for the year, Christmas edition. It's going to be short and quick. Hopefully you haven't found these videos too painful. I've enjoyed making them. Hopefully you've heard something of the goodness and love of God. Let me read to you from Matthew chapter 1. This is how the birth of Jesus the Messiah came about. His mother Mary was pledged to be married to Joseph, but before they came together, she was found to be pregnant through the Holy Spirit, because Joseph, her husband, was faithful to the law, and yet did not want to expose her to public disgrace. He had in mind to divorce her quietly. But after he considered this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, "Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will give birth to a son, and you are to give him the name Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins." All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God is with us. So Joseph woke up and did what the angel of the Lord commanded him, and took Mary and home as his wife. But he did not consummate their marriage until she gave birth to a son, and he gave him the name Jesus. I've always loved that line, Emmanuel, God is with us. I was reading someone this week, Andy Crouch I think it was, who said, if you want to know what God is like, it's amazing because you have to look at human beings, and a particular human being, to know exactly what God is like, and that is scandalous. But this week I've been reading a book. It's probably the oldest book I've ever read. It's from, I think the 2nd century, so like the year 170 or something. It's by Athanasius. And Athanasius is reflecting on this story. He's reflecting on the birth of Jesus, which they call the incarnation, which is God taking on flesh, taking on human form. Carne, you know, like chili con carne, which is like chili meat. Carne means flesh, and in means taking on. So incarne is taking on meat or flesh. So it's God becoming flesh and becoming human and taking it on board. But Athanasius, reflecting on it, he tells this little parable, this little story. He said, imagine there's a country where there's a king, a great and wonderful king, who rules the country with grace and love and peace. And then one town or one village in that country, they forget about God. They forget about the king. They forget what he's like. And they start to worship another king. And they start to serve another king from a completely different place. And so their town begins to go into chaos. There's violence and there's anger and there's disorder all over the place. He says, what's that king to do? He said, well, in the past, what kings would do is they would get their armies together and they would come in and they'd completely subdue the city with violence. They would come in and they'd take over the city with their armies. They'd destroy it. But this king's a little bit different. What this king does is, rather than destroying the city, rather than going in with an army, he goes in just by himself and in plain clothes. He goes in, and all the people who are sick in that city, he takes care of. All the people who are hungry in the city, he gives them food. All the people who are thirsty in that city, he gives them drink. All the people that are warring, he points them towards peace and love and forgiveness. And pretty soon, that city completely turns around, and they begin to see the king for who he has always been. A king of grace and love and truth, and they worship the king again. He said that's what the story of Jesus is all about. God, rather than coming down into the earth with violence and anger, forcing people to love and to worship him, he comes in the form of a tiny little baby, and he walks around the earth, and he heals the sick, and he gives drink to the thirsty, and he feeds the hungry, and he tells people to lay down their swords, to forgive each other and to love each other. And in doing that, we are acquainted again with the great King of the universe, the God who created it. And that leads us to worship. So this Christmas, If you want to know what God is like, look at human beings. If you want to know what human beings are like, look at Jesus. And you will see that the great King and Creator of the universe has made you for love and joy and peace and grace and forgiveness and joy and all the best bits of the world. Grace and peace. Merry Christmas, everyone.